Oi, oi! Hello, welcome to another GG.CO.UK video. Again, kindly sponsored by our friends at Boyle Sports, and I am excited because it's the start of the jump season proper. Hooray! The Friday and Saturday at Chepstow is classified as the National Hunt Jumps season opener. There are 2 days of some spectacular racing up for grabs. Now, of course, it is the start of the season, so we are not going to see I don't want to say the best of the best, because we do see some absolute weapons. Brave Man's Game, Lost in Translation, Altior, just a few names to bounce off that have run at this fixture in recent years. But it is obviously the start of the season, so there will be some horses that, I don't know, depending on how they summer, depending on how ground's been at home, might not just be seen yet at the start of the season, but do not let that take away from the class that we are going to have on show. What I will be doing in this video is running you through the 2 days, the races that are on each of those, giving a little bit of a thought, I suppose, to the mould and the type of horse that we could expect to go there, the type of things that I'll be looking at before declarations come out. And at this point, when the video goes live on Sunday evening, you probably still won't have, well, you definitely won't still have Saturday's entries. So this will be, I guess, an accompanying piece to your form study, that I'm looking at this before we know who could be running at the 2 day fixtures. Yes, there's rumours, there's things in horses and training brochures that will allude to who might come here, but trainers are creatures of habits, and this fixture has been a launch pad for some big names, as I've already touched on. So let's have a look at what's happened in the last sort of decade, or the last few years at least, in each of these divisions, and see if we can fathom or expect what might be coming up. Look, it's a good time to start get excited about the jumps racing. I obviously am year round, but this is the time of year where I like to sit down, I like to take my time, put a bit of effort into the form study. It will stand us in great stead throughout the season. There will be lots of horses that are ready to roll for this meeting, but aren't obviously going to peak at this meeting. They've got a long season ahead of them. So there will be bits of form that happen this early that we want to really make sure that we keep in our mind. We bear that as it comes through later in the season. Look, we had 2 Cheltenham Festival winners run at this fixture last year in Chianti Classico and Unexpected Party. There could, who knows, be lots of Spring Festival clues this year again. Do you know what? I say who knows. I'm sure there will be. Whether they're winning clues or not, that's up for debate, but let's crack on. So Friday kicks off with a 2 mile novices hurdle. Now, this is a fixture that I guess is synonymous with Paul Nicholls. Lots of people say that he likes to target this meeting, and of course he does. He's had lots of winners of this race in previous years. Nappers Hill, he had Flicker Voyeur, who won it the second year as a second season novice. Dynamite Dollars, of course, as well. Nicky Henderson's won it with Pim. The owners, of course, had a horse, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, Altior. It's a real good race, to be fair, and with it being a pretty good race, most of the winners are relatively short. I think we've had 7 favourites in recent years. There are sometimes a couple of extra divisions in here. It might even be 8 favourites, but there's been a lot of odds-on favourites in here as well. So it's potentially not a race that you're going to get rich in quick, but there will be some good horses out for show, and there will be some good form lines going through the season. As I touched on with Paul Nicholls, he has had horses such as Panjari that would beat in this. He had Hugo's New Horse who was beating this, Brave Man's Game that was beating this, Flicker Voyeur was beat the year before he won this. So it's not just because Paul Nicholls is targeting one of his horses here that it will go and win. John Joe O'Neill has a good bash at this as well. Won it with Collector's Item as a favourite, Soaring Glory as a favourite. He had Zonda, the late Zonda, that was placed in this race last year. There's been some good horses. It looks a good race. Fingers crossed it'll be the same again this year. But look, I guess the market will know quite a lot. The profile of the horse tends to be like your 4 and your 5-year-olds. Flicker Voyeur that won it at 6 was a second season novice, so slight advantage, I guess, for the horse in there. Redemption for connections on that one. Second race on the Fridays, a mares novices hurdle. This is over about the middle trip, so it's 2 miles, 3.5. There's a lot of the Chepstow races that are just shy of 3 miles, just shy of 2.5. They're the 3.5 or the 7.5 furlongs. Again, some nice horses that are going in. Paul Nicholls again's won this a few times in recent years with Silver Forever, Posh Trish, and If You Say Run, but he hasn't won any of the last 4 run-ins. He did have Florence the Machine last year that got beat by Alfie's Princess. Alfie's Princess was a very good winner, was real muddy that day as well, wasn't it? Dancing on the Edge for Nicholls in 2022 was well beat. Mondora was tailed off in 2021. Kilmington Rose was the favourite, but only 4th. And then I think, other than the races that he'd won, so Silver Forever, Posh Trish, and If You Say Run, don't think he had anything in 2016 and 15. So look, if he's got a horse for this, he will run it there. But I wouldn't always say that he's got something to win this race. If he's got a mare that could be this sort of mould, then he's going to run them. Whether they're guaranteed to win or not is a very different story. And even of his winners as well, we had one odds on poke in Silver Forever. One was a 4-1 poke, one was a 7-2 joint. There have been some shortish prices that have won this one. So again, probably not a race that you're going to get really rich in. I think 13-2 Wild Romance in 2020 is the biggest price winner in recent years. Then we get stuck into a grade 2. It's the Persian War, the flagship race for the season opener at Chepstow. And it's a real good race, to be fair. There's been all sorts of stuff that's gone on through the years on this one. But look, we've had the likes of Time Hill that won this before nearly winning an Albert Bartlett. We've got some other horses in here for Nichols. It will be a typical Nichols thing. When it's Secret Investors won this, El Bandit, he won it with McFabulous and Captain Teague, of course, last year. So I've no doubt he's got a horse that will come in here. Fergal O'Brien, of course, has Accidental Rebel that's won this. He won it with Poetic Rhythm as well. So for him to get greater success is not as surprising as maybe it would have been when he got that first one a good few years back. Like, he's a proper top trainer. He's got lots of opportunities this season. So I'd imagine this will be a race that he will be looking to get his season off to a good flying start with. And yeah, there's just been some good horses in it. Hobbs had the 1-2, didn't he, when Camprond won this. Luttrell Lamb was second. But this is a horse where No Comment was a favourite for Philip Hobbs, 6-4. On, I think he was unseated at the second in 2016. But as another JP McManus horse, talked about Camprond that won this. It is a race that potentially, if he's got a horse in here, he might like to send in here. I wonder if Son of De Burle was pulled up as favourite. I wonder if that was a JP horse as well. But look, it's one of those. It's another race again, right, that I don't think you're going to get stupidly rich off of it. There's not really big price winners in there. Accidental Rebel for Fergal O'Brien, the 8-year-old, was a 10-1 poke when he won it. So big enough price in the terms of this. But potentially you've got to look at that as it's going to be a good betting medium for those who, I don't know, it's findable to get the winner, right? It's not like we talk about shock after shock every year in here, but there will be some good horses lining up in this. Next race is a little difficult to talk about. Viewers of my channel will know why. The 10-4 is the Veterans Handicap Chase. Of course, won by Good Boy Bobby last year, but Iright was home for all money. 101 in running for a long time and then just idled and got picked up on the line. Good Boy Bobby obviously backed it up next time at Sandown to prove it wasn't just such a fluke. Some Chaos won it back-to-back a couple of years prior. We've had the horses like Verlier and Rouge that have won this, Double Ross. And mostly it's 10-year-olds that win this. We've had 2 11-year-olds in the last 10, but it's typically that, right? It's veterans now. These are horses that are 10. They're eligible to start running in this race. It's technically a drop in class, even though their weights may still be the same. If you're running in open company, as opposed to running against veterans, your rating would carry easier into this type of company. So it will be a thought for a few trainers. There'll be some nice horses that come here. Again, from a shot perspective, Present Man for Paul Nicholls and Bryony Frost was a 12-1 winner a good few years back. I think the only reason why it was such a big price and such a surprise, I don't want to say surprise winner because people fancied him. He's got form at the course, hasn't he? But the reason was probably the price it went off at is because it was suggested prior that he wasn't there fully wound up and still managed to win the race. So while it's good to hear what trainers are saying about some things, take it all with a pinch of salt, especially when you get to these older horses, right? I'm not saying that they will leave plenty off, but some of these horses that would improve through the season might be unexposed and horses that are fulfilling their potential. You get to a veteran sort of season, they should really all be wound up for the day. Now, of course, depends how much they train them at home. There's more to it than just that, but don't get put off, I guess is the key word to say there, because a friend of mine had a good bet that year on Present Man, had it in a multi, and I suggested he cashed it out after those comments. Luckily, he didn't. Obviously went and won, so happy days. Right, Novices Handicap Chase after this, over the 2 miles, 7.5. First time it was run last year. It used to just be a normal Novices Chase. Chianti Classico obviously won this, won it well, went on to win the Ultima. Again, GG Weekend Watch. I said that Chianti Classico would win that race before going on to win the Ultima. Yes, of course, this far out, you guessed it a little bit. It's the sort of insight you can get on this channel, though. Then we've got the 2 mile Seniors Handicap Hurdle. So again, another race with only just one running in there, but I love this. 8-year-olds or older. And the key thing to remember with that is it's being run in October. All horses age a year in January. So these 8-year-olds will technically be 9 in a couple of months' time. It's also for horses that are rated 135 or lower. So I can be a bit snobby when it comes to racing for people that know me. Still like this little band in there. Chance of Tune won it last year. Actually quite well backed. It was bad ground. I fancied Swaff and Bolbeck for the race last year for Stuart Williams and Kieran Geffens, I think was on. He was a real bad drifter. They did run him on the ground and he did manage to come second. So, I don't know. It's one of those, I feel like what could have been with that. But again, it'd be another one of those races where I wouldn't necessarily worry what the market's telling you in this. I say telling you, I wouldn't be worried about drifters or anything like that. Like, surely money for like support for a horse would be important in there, but you go with your own gut. These will be horses that are exposed enough now that you should have a bit of a feel of what they're doing with it. And you would imagine that if trainers are running here, considering it is such a specific race where you do have to be over 8 and it's a 0 to 135, you'd think that this would be an opportunity, not just for a day out, but would be an opportunity to pick up a prize. So yeah, I like the race as it stands, but we've only had that one running in there. And then the last race on Friday is the 5:30 conditional jockey handicap chase. Now this is one that I would be much more lukewarm on from a punting perspective. It is a 0 to 115. So not to be disrespectful to the horses, I'm sure it might potentially come across that way, but we're talking about jumps racing where, I don't know, let's just say a grade 2 horse, especially in Britain, is probably got to be rated 150 plus, and a grade 1 horse should really be 160 plus, although you're talking about a lot higher than that. So if you were to start to peel your way back down to 0 to 115, and we could be talking about horses that are rated under 100 in here, they are not, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel to be rude about it, but it is lesser class of horses in terms of what they're showing. Now, I do believe that lots of these horses, especially with how well bred they're made, they should be capable of doing much better than reaching marks of like 115. I think there could be potentially other reasons why they're not fulfilling their potential, whether that be injuries, attitude, just a multitude of different reasons of why they might not be able to do it. And I think they're harder to predict. So we've had no favourite winning this in the 4 years that it's been run. We had a 12 to 1 poke last year. We did have a 15 to 8 shot in 2022, but we had a 28 to 1 winner before that, and then a 13 to 2 before that. Look, I'm sure someone will be able to find the winner out there, but I wouldn't beat yourself up too much in this race if you couldn't, and I also wouldn't be too confident in the race. Again, you may have a different way of doing things, but there's better betting opportunities across the 2 days as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of which, Saturday, the first race, we kick off with a juvenile hurdle. Now, this is one again from last year's results. The ground was pretty bad. Paul Nicholls took most of his horses out apart from one in the Silver Trophy, which I'll talk about, which again hurts a little bit. But Liari was a non-runner for Paul Nicholls last year. It is a race that he does tend to try and send one to. So as much as we talk about and think about Paul Nicholls as a chaser, a chase trainer, thinking about Gold Cup horses down the line, he does love a good juvenile as well. But you look at Sir Psycho in 2019, was 4 for 11 to 8. Same owners, Martin Broughton had Keldastan, who was second at 7 to 4 in 2018. Malaya, different connections, but was 9 to 4 in 2017 behind Gumball. Wasn't favourite, but ran to his position, came second. There was Full Blast as well in 2014 for Martin Broughton again, 9 to 4 favourite and 5th. So look, just because Paul Nicholls has so many targets for it, doesn't mean they would have won. So Liari didn't run last year. There's no reason to say that potentially he would have beat Balboa, but who knows. But we've had some favourites that won this. Balboa, Tuddenham Green, Magistrato, Paul Nicholls, Hell Red, Paul Nicholls and Broughton. We had Gumball, I talked about, when beat Malaya, and we've had Dolos as well for Paul Nicholls. So look, that's not to say that Paul Nicholls sends a horse here, it's not going to win. But I would say that, I don't know whether I want to say 50-50 or anything like that. I would just say that the 3 winners that Paul Nicholls has had have all been odds on pokes. The ones that have been beat have all been odds against. So spin that however you want to spin it. It was more likely that the odds on pokes are going to go and win, aren't they? But look, there's going to be some good horses that come here. It is a nice race, and potentially it's a nice one for future going on. I listed the names of some of those more recent horses. They may not have fulfilled the promise that, I don't know, you would hope that this race might bring out of some of these horses. But look, it's a good race and a good starting point for the season for these juveniles. Nonetheless, oh yeah, Adrian de Pontiad as well, didn't he? But again, 4 to 9 odds on poke. Right. 2 mile, 4-year-old handicap hurdle is a nice race. I probably would say that my, passion for this type of division came in more 2019 when Torpedo won. I didn't actually bet Torpedo, fancied him a little bit. He went novice chasing, I believe, after this, but it can be a bit of a launch pad, right? It's a good opportunity for these 4-year-olds, the horses that raced at juveniles. They've got a handicap mark, they can go and do things. But it is one of those where I don't know. I try and see if I can find the winner in the race, and I don't know how well I can do in it. So I guess of a similar vein, I'd imagine don't basically beat yourself up too much if you can't solve the puzzle that is this race, or if they don't run to the expectations that you think they would. Shared won it last year for Harry Derham, who was a horse that went from Paul Nicholls to Harry Derham at the beginning of 2023, and then obviously the Chepstow season opener started up. Affadil was for Paul Nicholls in this race, was a non-runner because of the bad ground, was well fancied by loads of people, so who knows what would have happened in the result. And obviously Harry Derham potentially got gifted the race after that. There's been some nice horses though. Time White won it for Paul Nicholls. Grand Sancy won it for Paul Nicholls. Diego de Charmille's the only favourite in the last 10 years. It's won it again for Paul Nicholls. We've had Silver Streak's gone and win this. Torpedo that I mentioned. Nicky Henderson won it a few years back with Progressive as well. So look, big trainers are sending horses here. Evan Williams has picked this up a couple of times. Dan Skelton's got a winner in here as well with Bertimon. They're all going to try and send something for this 2 mile 4-year-old handicap hurdle. It is again quite a niche race, start of the season stuff as well, but depending on how the ground goes, depending on how the fields will pick up, we're going to see some nice horses in it for sure. Good puzzle to pick apart in there. Then we've got the 245. It's a 2 mile 3.5 novices chase. Good race this, to be honest with you. We've had Unexpected Party won it last year. Of course, went and won the Grand Annual at Cheltenham. We've had Sebastopol win it when he was a 2 to 9 poke. I think it was a match race that day. T Clipper won it as 11 to 4 joint favourite. Grand Sonsi, Paul Nicholls, 2020. Jarvis Plate, Fergal O'Brien, 2019. Spirit of the Games for Dan Skelton, 2018. Finian's Oscar, 1 to 3 favourite, 2017. Just some good horses that have been sat in here. But while Paul Nicholls has won it with Grand Sonsi, also won it with Southfield Theatre, let me talk to you about some of the horses he's had in here. Nappers Hill was beat last year. Fidelio Vallis was beat in 2021. Posh Trish beat in 2019. Marty Tomitaka, that's a hard one to say. Master Tommy Tucker fell in 2018. We know that horse, legend of a horse that he is. Fell is probably a bit of what he does. Sad to see, but like he was a bit of an aeroplane, wasn't he? Alcala slipped up. And speaking of aeroplanes, Clan de Zobo was 4th in this. Paul Nicholls also had Asdemi 2nd in this. So look, I touched on Brave Man's Game running in a race and getting beat. And I do talk about this being a good launch pad and a good target meeting for Paul Nicholls. I would imagine, and you can't, I don't want to say quote me on this, but you can quote me on this, but I'm not saying it's definitely true. I would imagine that he has all these novices nowhere near their peak for this fixture, but they are potentially good enough to still do themselves justice. I don't think he'll beat himself up too much if they go and get beat. So look, it's a good novices chase that's in it. There's going to be good targets for the horses they go on for next year. I touched on the ground was bad last year. We'll have to see how that goes. But obviously pay attention to what the big dogs are sending in here, because Paul Nicholls will probably send something that's pretty good to this fixture. And of course, Dan Skelton sent Unexpected Party here, who I thought was going to go back to 2 miles after at Cheltenham in that Arkle trial where he didn't. Ended up going for a different race there, didn't he? And it's just that, like, you see how they start the season. This is where I'm talking about. You need to remember this form as the season goes on, because it will stand potentially the test of time. And especially when it's run on really bad ground and then the ground starts to pick up a little bit through the winter. I don't know. It could be that this sort of form gets forgotten, but this will be a good race, I'd imagine. And there'll be some good horses that are in there. Now, on to the feature race for day 2, the Silver Trophy. The one I was talking about, Paul Nicholls took everything out apart from a couple. Sonagino was 3rd in this race last year. I fancied him quite a bit. Ground was probably a bit too testing. Ran well still to come 3rd. Again, one of those I felt a little bit like he ran him because he was definitely wound up and fully fit for this. And I think this will be a race that will probably be targeted by quite a few trainers. So where I say they might leave a little bit on them, I don't think you can leave a bit on them if you want to win a Silver Trophy. I think the best touch person I've had in this was Ballyoptic in 2016, but sort of since then, Evan Williams won it with Court Minstrel, 14 to 1 poke, a 10-year-old. Sophie Leach won it with Garrow de Julier, 25 to 1 poke. Dan Skelton won it with Flash the Steel, 16s. Then we finally had a bit of respite. T Clipper, the 7 to 2 favourite, well backed as well. Orby's Legend, won it after that, 7 to 1. Nappers Hill won it for Paul Nicholls, and it was Pyramid Place last year that got the better of Sonagino and one other. But again, it was bad ground. But again, let's talk about Nicholls in here because he is a meeting that he targets. Sonagino, I said, was 3rd. Nappers Hill won it the year before. Dargianini was pulled up, favourite when he was the year prior. Sasaika was beating this and Grenadine was beating this as well. So look, they were all relatively well fancied. I guess you could look for a little bit of market support to see where the confidence comes in with some of these. But look, no trainer sending a horse to the Silver Trophy, I don't think, just for a day out. They're all there because they think they've got a chance of winning, and then may the best horse win on the day. But it will be a good race. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a big price shock in there. Probably one of the races across the week that you would be... sorry for the wobble there. You might be a bit more expecting of a big price winner than other places. Look, there's good horses that go in there. Then the 355, it's a 2 mile 3.5 furlong memorial handicap chase for John Ayres. Paul Nicholls, again, I'm going to just quickly allude to the stuff that he's got in here because he had a few winners. He had Otmaresque, Roman Desainem, that was 2016 and 17 respectively. Flicker Voyeux won it in 2022, a horse I've talked about lots at this particular meeting. Grand Sonsi was beat in 2021. Mont des Avoirs, when it was 11 to 8 favourite for a handicap chase, beat in 2020. We've even got horses like Charbel that would beat in 2019 as a favourite after winning it in 2018. So look, another race where market can be a good help in this one, but we have some big price winners in here. We've had 20 to 1 winner, the Birch Bay. We've had 10 to 1 winner, which was Artmores for Paul Nicholls. We've had 14-1 winner, Astrocrad for Nigel Twiston-Davis, who I've already touched on. Probably does go quite well at this time of the season anyway. So good looking race, to be fair. I'm sure there'll be some good bets to be had. 4:30 is a 2 mile, 7.5 furlong handicap chase. We talked about that trip again. T Clipper was beaten favourite again in this last year. That's the last twice he's been beaten favourite in the race. Ground killed him, but Stolen Silver darted up in this and was well backed. Sam Thomas had quite a few that I guess were targeted for this meeting. So he would be a trainer that is well worth noting across the 2 days what he will be sending out. That Stolen Silver was bet like it couldn't get beaten, one like it couldn't either. Kitty's Light's a big named horse that was ahead second in here. Speaking of big names, Little Rockefeller was behind Ballyoptic in 2019, but again, we'll talk about Paul Nicholls. He had a winner in 2020 with Secret Investor, but Neil Mulholland's had this twice, the Young Master and Shereko Vallis. That's in 2018 and 2021 respectively. It's more of a race, I guess, that's open for everyone. It's a nice race. Horses of all types of ages win it. We've had 7-year-olds up to 12-year-olds when Peregrine won, got the job done, but a good competitive race in there. That'll be a nice puzzle to solve, I suppose. The 505, the bumper, the last race of the 2-day fixture. I'm going to talk about some horses that didn't run in here as well as the ones that did, because Brecon Castle was a non-runner in this race last year before looking like a proper type of horse. I fancied actually for the champion bumper. This will be a spoiler alert, but he's going to be in my horses to follow this season. Litigate was another one, 2019. Half sibling to Indefatigable. Martin Pike, proper horse there, but needed good ground. I fancied Litigate for this race, but the ground came up against it. I trust that the trainer would withdraw, and they did, and won at 16-1 first time up after. So look, we had non-runners last year because the ground was bad, Brecon Castle being one of them. But this is a bumper where I think people send quite nice horses from all different types of yards. So look, Paul Nicholls won it with Catboy, didn't he? He won it with Time for a Tune. I think that was a little bit lucky. I feel like Paddy Brennan gave the second a bad ride, but we are where we are. Nappers Hill won it for Paul Nicholls, again, mentioned him multiple times at this meeting. McFabulous won it, Mont d'Azavour again, and Coastal Tiep. So that Paul Nicholls is going to send something for this particular race. He does have some nice bumper types. We'll see how it goes. We don't really seem to get too many shot-priced winners in here. Cateson for Tom Lacey in 2017 was the last one to do that at a big price. Dickie Johnson rode him though. So I think it's going to be good horses that come up in here. But like I say, pay attention to those that may be finishing behind as well. Look for market support, but also pay close attention to those that are fancied that do not potentially run if the ground does go bad. Keep an eye on those ones for next time out or through the season. Pretty much wraps up all I think you need to know about before you see the horses and entries for Chepstow's 2-day meeting. As I touched on, Weekend Watch will be out on Thursday. We'll be covering lots of the Saturday action there. If we've got anything from anywhere else, if I've got anything for Friday, for example, I'll chuck them in there too. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Do make sure you drop us a like as well. Drop a comment if there's anything else that I've missed out that you think I need to be knowing before we go into Chepstow's season opener. And we will see you again very soon.